It is mysterious because we don't really understand it fully as a phenomenon, and I would like people to study it more. I realize we have much higher priorities, but I don't know. Why the heck not?
You may recall from childhood the many absurd dangers we thought we might one day have to face. Quicksand, the Bermuda Triangle, killer bees, and today's topic, spontaneous human combustion. Sarah Marshall of You're Wrong About is here to teach me about this confounding phenomenon in which a person is found almost totally incinerated in their own home with no explanation, seeming to have burst into flames from inside their own bodies. From the Victorian era to the modern day, we'll look at historical cases and modern explanations to try to separate fact from fiction. Plus, you'll get to hear about Sarah's new podcast with the CBC on the past, present, and future of the satanic panic called The Devil You Know, which you can subscribe to right now and start listening, you little devils. All right, try not to explode from within because this is American hysteria. Oh boy, we've got something real spicy for you all today. I am so thrilled to be talking to Sarah Marshall about what else but spontaneous human combustion. Hi, Sarah.
This Sunday. Thank you, Chelsey. I'm so happy and honored to be here talking to you once again about something that used to scare the bejesus out of me on Unsolved Mysteries.
Oh, yeah. It was a good one.
Yeah.
My only real experience with spontaneous human combustion was writing a story about it in my magical realism writing class in college.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a good amount of experience. What happened in the story?
It was using like one of the really famous stories, which I'm sure we'll get to, so I don't want to spoil it too much, but where all that was left of the woman was a foot inside a slipper.
Well, okay, one thing that I find very interesting about this is that it's very classic in spontaneous human combustion cases, or alleged spontaneous human combustion cases, I should also say, for only the legs and feet of the victim to remain. And I find that very scary, but also it's just like, I don't know, there comes a point when you've looked at a lot of pictures of the leftover feet, it begins to get weird in your head.
Yeah, that's very scary. I'm just really excited to learn about it because I know there's a lot of BS and I know there's a lot of mystery, and I'm excited to get into it. And I think my only other experience is not spontaneous human combustion.
Oh,
but as I talked about in, here's a little pitch, a recent Patreon episode where I just talked alone into the mic for a long time and told all my ghost stories. Check that out, everyone. I talked about how this lighter I had during this particularly volatile haunting that I went through. I was in my office. I smelled something burning. I ran into the kitchen and looked over by my door, and on the table by my door, a lighter had lit itself on fire, and this like really tall, like 2-foot flame was coming out of it. And it was very scary. And that was really the one time I thought a ghost might be trying to kill me. So it's not a human, but it's very unexplained to this very day. So
yeah. Yeah, and part of this is always going to be us talking about how we leave room for the unexplained.
Oh, yeah.
And how the unexplained is not the unexplainable, but maybe unexplainable so far and right now.
Absolutely.
But maybe not tomorrow.
For sure.
And so I sent you a passage from Charles Dickens's Bleak House. I would like, if I may, for you to read it to us.
I sure will. You let me practice first, which is good, because as we learned with Sarah Sarah, which everyone thought was so funny. I'm not the best cold reader all the time.
I love that. But also, like, Dickens is one of those writers where, like, you get to the middle of a sentence and you're like, wait, how did this one start? I can't remember, you know? Yeah.
A little bit meandering.
Love the guy, but come on.
Let's add a few periods in there, buddy. What's the matter with the cat? Says Mr. Guppy. Look at her. Mad, I think, and no wonder in this evil place. They advance slowly, looking at all these things. The cat remains where they found her, still snarling at something on the ground, before the fire and between the two chairs. What is it? Hold up the light. Here is a small burnt patch of flooring. Here is the tinder from a little bundle of burnt paper, but not so light as usual, seeming to be steeped in something. And here is it the cinder of a small charred and broken log of wood sprinkled with white ashes, or is it coal? Oh, horror, he is here, and this from which we run away, striking out the light and overturning one another into the street, is all that represents him. Help, help, help! Come into this house for heaven's sake. Plenty will come in, but none can help. The Lord Chancellor of that court, true to his title in his last act, has died the death of all Lord Chancellors in all courts, and of all authorities in all places under all names soever, where false pretenses are made and where injustices are done. Call the death by any name your highness will, attribute it to whom you will, or say it might have been prevented how you will. It is the same death eternally, inborn, inbred, engendered in the corrupted humors of the vicious body itself, and that only spontaneous combustion, and none other of all the deaths that can be died.
Charles Dickens, everyone.
Ooh, yeah, really good. Really good.
That was beautiful performing.
Thank you.
You can see why people why he was a touring author.
Sure. Yeah. Lots of drama there.
And the way that, musicians tour now, like, come see Dickens, read about the exploding guy. What are your thoughts on this wonderful passage of literature?
I mean, I really love the ending because I really wasn't sure where it was going. And then that announcement was really effective for me.
Yeah.
And none other of all the deaths that can be died.
That's so good.
Very metal. I love it.
And let me pull your attention to something near the end here, and I'll read this again. It is the same death eternally, inborn, inbred, engendered in the corrupted humors of the vicious body itself. So apparently Dickens is not like bringing spontaneous human combustion into people's minds as a subject of conversation. I'm sure he certainly helped. And this is one of those things where it's kind of like, I think, on the air, and then it being in a major work kind of catalyzes its importance or makes it kind of even more apparent than it's like a trend, kind of. Because when a scientist of the time, after Bleak House is serialized, the opening of the published novel form of Bleak House is Dickens taking a moment. He talks about other stuff, but he takes a moment to be like, by the way, I received criticism for having one of my characters die of spontaneous human combustion. And it's like, so a real thing, you guys. I have studied 30 cases of spontaneous human combustion. Dickens is like, don't at me about spontaneous human combustion.
All right. Okay. So it does seem like by this time it was like a well-known phenomenon, right?
Yeah, it was certainly something people were talking about. There had been some well-publicized cases. Bleak House is published, I think, in complete novel form in 1853.
Okay.
And so we're, as you talk about a lot in many of your episodes, and especially around spiritualism, we're near the very beginnings of mass culture, where ideas can kind of spread around. And through kind of cheaply printed books is one of the major ways that people are getting their edutainment at this point in time, and their gossiptainment and so on. And so there are cases, some of the sources that I looked at for this cite things dating back to the 1600s. I think I heard on Unsolved Mysteries a claim of that they date back to the 14th century, but it was unsolved mysteries and they didn't say what the case was. So, pending future investigation, I would need to put more time into trying to find what I would feel happy saying is apparently the first story of spontaneous human combustion. But it's not like an age-old phenomenon. Like, we don't have people in ancient Rome apparently going up in flames, at least that we have accounts of. Although,
Okay.
Perhaps we haven't looked hard enough.
Some dense texts back then.
Yes, a lot happened. But spoiler, I think that one of the things that is going to be a theme here is how flammable daily life is for people.
Yeah.
And so we have these cases that Dickens pulls from. There's, a couple from the more distant past, at least, that he's looking at. There's a famous case from the 18th century, but there are a few at around this time that people in Victorian England would know about.
Mm-hmm.
And I want you to tell me about what your perception is of what spontaneous human combustion is supposed to look like.
Okay.
We talked about the legs being left behind.
Sure.
And Dickens certainly paints a picture. And then if there are any, just what your view on the plausibility of that is.
Okay. So from what I have gathered, spontaneous human combustion involves usually a person alone, like a person alone in their home.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Just randomly catches on fire and burns to death until there's like very little left of their body. And then usually someone comes and finds them and announces, oh my God, spontaneous human combustion strikes again. And that I've heard, like little theories or different things about static, igniting someone who's been drinking a lot, or like having to do with like the body fat content on a person. But that's about the extent of my knowledge on this topic. I've wanted to do a deep dive for a long time. And actually the other day, a listener randomly asked for a spontaneous human combustion episode. And so I feel like the appetite is out there for us to know more. But yeah, that's about the extent for me.
There are enough people who grow up on unsolved mysteries. Okay. Well, personally, like what does your gut say about it?
My gut says no.
Yeah? Okay, nice.
It does not seem like a person can explode like internal, right? Because part of it is like it's like they said it happened like internally versus like, oh, I smoked a cigarette and fell asleep and caught on fire. It's like something from within burns you to without.
Yeah. I mean, not everybody says that, but certainly in Dickens's time, I think that idea is getting a lot of play. And we'll look at an Unsolved Mysteries clip where that idea is still getting some credence.
Okay.
I don't like to lead the witness, but like you drink like a gallon of water every day, which leads us to the reality that like, what is the human body mostly made out of?
Water. Yeah.
What's hard to burn?
Water.
Water, Helen, water. Now that I can communicate, the world is not so cold and dark. So, and also think about it, right? Like if we kill someone and we need to dispose of a body, or if we need to dispose of a body for more wholesome reasons, I guess, you can't just like light a match next to a dead body and it goes up like kindling. By the same token, like you can't just use new firewood. You have to let it dry out for like 6 months or something.
Oh, yeah.
Well, so here's another piece of like 1800s trivia that I bet you know, which is the human body is not that flammable. But what is clothing like? Not all clothing, but notably some clothing, specifically clothing worn by women.
I want to say wool. Is that wrong?
I'm looking for flammable or not flammable. Or I guess technically inflammable is the correct term, but I don't want to confuse normal people.
Right. I mean, I guess I would think that...
people are wearing wool. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I would think not flammable.
I think wool is actually like fairly good to wear if you're worried about catching fire. Although maybe if it's been spun in the grease, you don't want to deal with that. I don't know.
Right. I think you throw a wool blanket on fire, maybe. Don't do that if that's wrong, everyone. Look it up first.
Yeah, you can just get a nice modern technology fire prevention blanket these days, but
that's better.
Okay, well, so there's a lot of different things that people wear, and there are certain things that are good to be wearing if you're going to get sparks on you. But there's an article that I've always been very fond of called A History of Women Who Burned to Death in Flammable Dresses.
Wow.
Which was published on Racked. May she rest. The author of this is Rain Knudsen. And let me just read you a little bit of this article.
Okay.
A teenage duchess who hid her cigarette from her parents, a dancer getting ready to go on stage, a mother entertaining her children in her home, sisters dancing at a Halloween party, 2 women near a stove. All of these women lived differently, from actual royalty to anonymous nobodies, but they all died the same way. The dresses they were wearing caught fire and killed them. In the mid-19th century, women wearing the style of the day would burst into flames if their dress caught fire. And I do mean burst. Their dresses were so dangerously flammable that if they caught fire, it would spread in an instant, sometimes leading to groups of women dying at the same time.
Oh my God.
It's not a buildup like, oh my gosh, you're smoking, let me tamp that out. It's like, you're... It's not funny, but the way I just said is funny. Your girlfriend beside you is a ball of fire, and you're now a ball of fire, and boom, 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 boom. They're all balls of fire, says Deirdre Kelly, author of Ballerina, Sex, Scandal, and Suffering Behind a Symbol of Perfection.
Wow.
Yeah, tell me your thoughts.
Well, I guess one of my first thoughts with that is, and perhaps it's just the framing of what you were reading, but that it seems to be women that are more often bursting into flames. And also, obviously, what a scene, what a terrifying thing to imagine happening, you know, dancing or even seeing like these girls just popping like popcorn into flames. It's just a very haunting image and something that I certainly would have had a lot of fear about had I lived in the Victorian era. And I guess it sounds like you also had that fear centuries later.
That I'm afraid of bursting into flame?
Yeah, because you said you were scared of spontaneous human, or you were.
I mean, it definitely freaked me out as a kid. And but I think it might honestly freak me out more now because it was like, interestingly, you don't really hear about it happening to children. And frequently it happens to elderly people.
Okay.
You know, and as you said, kind of by definition, it tends to happen to somebody who's alone or unobserved because if there are witnesses, then by definition, it falls sort of less into the mysterious category, because often I think what happens, I think that what we're dealing with is like a few different mysteries, right? Because there's the question of how a person can ignite so suddenly. How can a human body, which is not very flammable generally, or like by definition not flammable, how can a human body ignite very quickly and burn at a very high temperature? And then also the kind of mysterious details that are in a lot of these cases, that there's a body that burns at so high a temperature that it burns through the flooring.
Yeah.
And yet there are other potentially flammable objects in the room pretty close by that are untouched.
Right. I remember that part of it, that it doesn't really make sense in terms of why the rest of the house doesn't also burn down, or at least experience greater damage than these cases showed.
Right. And like, why is fire able to consume a human body at such a high temperature and leave nothing, like burn through bone, leave very little behind, and yet leave something behind that's sort of cleanly severed? You know, there's at least one description I read of like it seeming almost like it was cut by a knife, that the severing was so clean.
Yeah. Because, I mean, bones are like, you need like a crematorium to get those down to a fine ash. Yeah.
Well, exactly. And here's a little satanic panic parallel, and I'm not trying to make this happen, but, you know, they always do pop up. Listen to The Devil You Know out October 20th from CBC Podcasts. But one of the things that comes up naturally pretty early in the satanic panic, because Chelsey, as you know, if anyone reads Michelle Remembers, what they come away with is that these Satanists are going through a nearly infinite supply of babies that they have to sacrifice for their rituals.
Yes.
And aside from the question of where are they getting these babies without anyone saying, hey, that's my baby, because it's usually like kind of a big deal when that happens to a baby.
Generally speaking, yes.
It's often on Unsolved Mysteries. There's also the question of why are we never finding a single piece of physical evidence of these sacrificed baby bodies? And so I realize what I'm saying is very distressing, but at a certain point, you're just like, what? Am I in a chick comic right now?
It's very Jack Chick coded.
Listen to American Hysteria on Jack Chick. Yeah.
Thank you.
And so one of the things that people who are defending the kind of logic behind the satanic panic will say at the time is like, well, they burn them. And when people point out that you need some kind of a crematorium to destroy a human body down to the last particle, some people are willing to be like, yeah, well, that's what the Satanists have. That's the ticket. Gee.
Yeah.
They have crematoria on wheels and they go from town to town burning baby bodies. And it's like, how do they get the word out about this? Is it in the newsletter next to the item about the spaghetti feed?
It's job creation, I guess.
I guess. But I don't know. The idea that Americans could ever be as organized as most conspiracy theories argue will just always be funny to me, because it's like, have you seen us? Like, we can't even put on a bake sale without a fist fight erupting half the time.
Have you ever met a Satanist? It's mostly video games. But right, I understand the connection.
Yeah, so we have this problem of how are these bodies so thoroughly incinerated?
Right.
And yet also it doesn't leap to other seemingly, nice burnable objects in the room.
Right.
And so I think one of the things that comes into play, and not to say that, there were women spontaneously combusting all over the place in the 19th century, but also, talking about these cases mentioned in this article, you do get the sense that sometimes what separates a kind of more regular, less mysterious burning case from a case of alleged spontaneous human combustion is that someone was there to see what happened and to put it out or attempt to put it out. Probably not in time to save that person, but at least in time for there to not, be a fire that raged for a sustained period of time.
Right, right.
So, yeah, what does your kind of culture brain think of the fact that at the time that we have this more, I don't know, a surprisingly mainstream conversation about spontaneous human combustion as a threat in the mid-19th century, the sort of like actual catching fire of human women in front of witnesses is happening as a result of fashion. And it feels like that's like a little bit less exciting to people to contemplate. They're just like, well, women.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess, my brain is going to sort of on one hand, if we're talking about the clothing part, there is this sense in the Victorian era that women's vanity and fashion is getting out of control.
That's very interesting.
I know. And that it is leading to different moral consequences. And then on the other hand, we have the spiritualism movement really starting to gain a lot of ground, which is, of course, another movement very centered around women and kind of the magical properties that women far more so than men are able to conjure up based on their, fairness. And I don't mean in a judicial sense. I mean fairness, like, wan and pale and physical thin veil that things can pass through. So I guess I would think that perhaps there's this idea that if we have these conduits of spiritual energy that can bring forth ghosts just using their own constitutions, like why would they not be able to burst into fucking flames from inside too?
Okay, so your analysis is that the sort of theorizing about femininity at the time is that women just kind of burst into flames sometimes. We're more connected with the spirit world.
Yeah, that's one idea.
I like that. Yeah, because it is interesting that like women are wearing these extremely flammable dresses. Let me read again from this Racked article, which says, part of what made these dresses so flammable was the same thing that made them so beautiful. These dresses were meant to give the illusion that women were dreamy, romantic figures, but that also meant they had air flowing around and through them.
Okay.
Quote, if you imagine a sheet of newspaper and a hunk of wood, essentially chemically they are the same, but one will catch light way more quickly than the other. So if you have a very flimsy flowing something that mixes well with air, it will burn quite readily, says Martin Bide, a professor of the Textiles, Fashion, Merchandising, and Design Department at the University of Rhode Island. These dresses, combined with candles and gaslight in a world before electricity, led to a multitude of women being taken by the flame. Matthews David wrote that in 1860, British medical journal The Lancet estimated that 3,000 women in 1 year died by fire.
Wow.
That's roughly equivalent to the amount of women murdered in the U.S. in 2014, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Jeez, that's a lot.
It's really a lot.
I was kind of thinking that this was like a handful of cases that were then just highly sensationalized.
And meanwhile, Dickens is like, I have collected 30 cases across many centuries of people exploding. And it's like, women are turning into columns of fire right in front of people right now. You know?
God, that's crazy. Yeah, yeah.
And not to say that nobody was taking it seriously, but, you know.
But it seems like medical men were taking it seriously.
Yeah, I mean, they were counting it, so that's really good.
That's something.
But it doesn't seem like this caused any kind of major backlash in terms of fashion. I mean, people continue to wear this stuff.
Well, you know, I probably would too.
Yeah, beauty is pain.
It is.
Beauty is bursting into flames occasionally. I mean, yeah, you know, it's like you hear about people getting like discount BBLs and dying on the table.
Yeah, but people are still going back.
Yeah. Well, you can't beat those prices.
No, you cannot. But I mean, it does, like, scientifically, that description makes sense to me. You're wearing some kind of like thinner, almost tulle like fabric that makes you, you know, look like a romantic figure.
Yeah. Or actual tulle, because this did happen to ballerinas.
Interesting.
Because you're wearing extremely flammable layered fabric and you're also dancing next to what? Gaslight.
Wow. You know,
yeah.
Ballet is really dangerous, people.
Yeah.
From all angles, ballet scares me.
Ballet is the football of femininity.
Wow. Wow. You just blew my mind.
Isn't it? Because, right, I was thinking about this the other day, and you could, you know, compare this to a lot of other sports, but these are both the sort of like highly gendered things that are like, in a way, the most feminine or the most masculine thing you can do. And they both involve absolutely destroying your body in a lot of cases and are kind of designed to do so.
Yeah, I mean, CTE is also turning men into, you know, murderers, as it has for serial killers forever. And it's just like, can we figure something out here?
And it's like, we got a lot of money tied up in this thing. I don't...
But speaking of fashion... Last Podcast on the Left just did this really great series about the Aaron Hernandez murders.
Oh, yeah.
Basically, there are like these helmets that are being offered to protect, you know, people from CTE, one of the very few things that the NFL has been willing to do aside from cover it up. But people are not wanting to wear them because they look dorky. So it also kind of is like if girls were continuing to wear the same fashions despite the possibility of exploding into a ball of fire. You know, I mean, fashion is a powerful thing. Wanting to be cool is a really, really powerful thing. And I can't fault people for it.
And also living in kind of a death-centric culture and having a hard time stepping out of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. We really want our entertainment to suffer, I guess. More after this. And now, back to the show.
I'm going to send you a picture now. I want you to tell me who you see.
Ooh, so it's beautiful. It's like a framed, kind of matted image of a woman in a kind of flowered see-through black veil, kind of laying on her hands and staring at the painter. And she is resting her hands and her head on a pillow. And she's very pretty. I like her. And she's got a very soft gaze that I could look at forever.
Me too. Yeah, I feel like this is the opposite of medieval art, which I know freaks you out because it feels very naturalistic.
Yes.
Not photorealistic, but it feels like you can really it feels like you're looking back at somebody.
Yeah. And there's like a real human vibe to this painting. Like I do feel like I'm looking at a picture more than a painting. So what year is this painting from?
This painting is from 1834. It's Fanny Appleton by G.P.A. Healy.
Okay.
And you know who else liked Fanny Appleton, who's 17 in this painting, was Henry Wadsworth Longfellow.
Oh.
Because they met and they had a flirty correspondence. He then wrote a book about their attempted romance. She apparently found this mortifying. They didn't talk for years and then they got married.
Wow.
I just find that funny.
It feels kind of modern, a very modern romance to me.
It does. Yeah. And this picture I got from the nationalparkservice.gov. This is a site for the Longfellow House. And Fanny herself is from Lowell, Mass. And they also have a collection of her correspondence and papers, which you can visit. And they also have some digitized. And so here's just a little bit from her letter to Henry Wadsworth Longfellow in May 1843, which I believe is the year they got married as well.
Okay.
She ends by saying, "Farewell till then, my heart's best treasure. I hope this will reach you in time. Perhaps some little bird will whisper in your ear that it is coming. Ever and forever thine, Fannykin."
Wow.
Yeah.
She really is, looking at her face, she really is a poet's girl. You know what I mean? It's like, that is a woman that a poet falls in love with and then does something annoying about.
Exactly.
Do you remember? I feel like it was in like 2010, 2011. There was like this trend of these kind of like really underground poets and writers writing really explicitly about their relationships with women and like including their texts and then actually printing them. It was like a huge thing for a little bit.
It's like, what if I found a woman to write my book? That sounds vaguely familiar because I feel like a lot of the kind of literary scene between like 2003 and 2012 was like, what if men's toxic feelings were art? And it's like,
I mean, it's true. And what if they included no art?
Yeah.
Like no artfulness as they recounted their lives.
Yeah. What if they were like, this is deep because I'm not trying very hard. And you're like, thank you, Towlin.
It's like when, I'm going to fucking talk shit. It's like when James Franco was like this huge deal and he was working at like Columbia and NYU teaching classes. And then it's when I was in grad school. So there was like a sense of like, well, he doesn't deserve that. And, it was just, his writing was so bad. And it was just so like humiliating that was kind of the place we were at in the writing world at that time.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to spontaneous human combustion.
Yeah, back to that. Well, okay. So anyway, back to Fanny Longfellow, because what happens to her in 1861 is that she becomes one of the women who is killed by her own clothes because somehow, possibly from a lit match or just one of the many kind of, on fire things in the American household at that time, her dress goes up in flames. Her husband attempts to put her out and isn't able to in time, and then burns himself so severely that he can't attend her funeral, which is on what would have been their 18th wedding anniversary.
Wow. I cannot believe I don't know this.
Longfellow education is so lacking. Or really, it's like they teach you one poem by a guy and are like, all right, that's it. And it's like, just tell me about everybody's wife.
Yeah, exactly. Please. And I mean, God, it's like, of all things to happen to a poet's wife, I imagine that was some great fodder for some poems later on, but maybe it was too traumatic. But, your wife bursting into flames is a pretty potent poetic image.
That's true. Possibly too poetic. Don't you feel as a poet that when the most poetic things are happening to you, you're like, ugh, stop.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, could you be a little bit less on the nose here, life?
I write the poems. Life doesn't write the poems at me. Okay.
Stop. Yeah, exactly. But so here is a poem that Longfellow did write many years later.
Okay.
This is called The Cross of Snow. This is about his grief at his wife's death. And it goes, "In the long sleepless watches of the night, a gentle face, the face of one long dead, looks at me from the wall, where round its head the night lamp casts a halo of pale light. Here in this room she died, and soul more white never through martyrdom of fire was led to its repose. Nor can in books be read the legend of a life more benedight. There is a mountain in the distant west that, sun-defying in its deep ravines, displays a cross of snow upon its side. Such is the cross I wear upon my breast these 18 years, through all the changing scenes and seasons, changeless since the day she died.
Wow. Man, that is so sad.
Yeah.
And, it's like, yeah, obviously it's something we've been joking about because it's just so outrageous. But man, it's just, that is incredibly traumatic. And it's weird because as far as I believe you've said, he was present when she caught on fire.
Oh, yeah. He was there.
And I mean, how do you ever get that image and experience out of your head? It must have haunted him constantly.
Yeah.
And it makes sense it took him that long to actually write about it, because I think that's kind of true about poems, is like you need a lot of distance from the traumatic experience to be able to actually effectively try to capture those things, or it's just too much.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I guess I wanted to share that poem because, I don't know if this would count as a case of spontaneous human combustion if she was alone in the house, right?
Maybe.
My understanding of this is not nuanced enough. And it's also kind of an understudied area because things that end up on cable TV specials so frequently are. But I think that one of the maybe realities that we were using spontaneous human combustion as like a little Dickensian obsession of the time to balance out was the fact that like what spontaneous human combustion is communicating as a term, as you were saying, is that as a lot of people did and still do theorize, that there is some kind of an internal source of flame. Like Dickens mentions the idea of humors being imbalanced.
Right.
And that is part of this sort of holdover from the Middle Ages idea that, well, if you mess up your humors, you can just burst into flame sometimes.
Yeah.
And yet there's very apparent external causes. And we're also through technology, right? Because we're able to make this flammable clothing and make it widely available for women.
Yeah.
Through factory technology that we're developing at the time, that we are living in this world that we continue to live in where the technology that we're able to come up with outpaces our ability to understand how to make it safer for people.
Right. Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
And so it feels like it makes sense to be like, well, we know pretty well what kills people. Like there are a lot of very preventable causes of human death and trauma that like we could do something about, but that would involve going after manufacturing. We can't really blame the victim in these cases,
right.
Or we would have to deal with some kind of an industry, and that would be hard. And so as people, we just, I think, gravitate towards the thing that there's like a lot lower odds of happening.
Right.
Like there haven't been that many cases of alleged spontaneous human combustion. So it's really striking and it kind of plays on the mind, but it's not something that, unless you're a pretty suggestible young kid, you're going to lie about worrying about happening
right.
to your family. And by the way, when I was a kid, interestingly, I was much more freaked out by the concept of psychic surgery, which is hilarious to me now because wouldn't that save some money if we could really do that?
So just that someone could like perform surgery on you without touching you, just like with their mind?
Yeah, well, they touch you, but they just kind of massage your skin and then they like pull out what's supposed to be a tumor. Jim Jones used to do this.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
But really, it's just like chicken parts.
Oh, my God. Yes. Yeah. I remember this now. This is very familiar to me.
I remember they showed that in Man on the Moon, the Andy Kaufman movie.
Yeah. Whoa.
Mm-hmm. Psychic surgery.
God. What this also reminds me of when you're saying there was no way to blame the victim, it's kind of like, except saying that her humors made her explode. You know, you're right. It's kind of like, then we don't have to do anything that would deregulate an industry or anything. We can just, or anything to regulate an industry. We can just say that you're predisposed to explode.
Yeah, women are exploding all the time.
They're so emotional.
Well, and so another thing that becomes kind of received wisdom in the 19th century is that, boy, this seems to happen to people who are known drinkers, some people who are what we might call today alcoholics, certainly the character in Bleak House is. So the idea that scientists of the time come up with is that maybe spontaneous human combustion happens because people who drink a lot get soaked in alcohol.
Yes.
And then they just go up in flames a lot easier. And I would like you to tell me what you think of that theory.
Well, I mean, scientifically, I'm going to say that, no amount of alcohol is going to offset the amount of water within.
Yeah, very good point.
Even though it feels like it when you get hungover. Am I right? Drink that water, girls.
That's true.
Miranda and I have taken to doing water chugging contests after our nights out.
See, my mom unfortunately heard in 2007 of a woman who died of water intoxication while trying to win a Wii in a radio competition. And so she scared me enough about that now I'm afraid of chugging.
Okay, well, I it's everyone out there. You're going to have to decide.
Everyone out there has a mother who emphasizes different points, and you'll be fine. True. That you have to drink a lot of water, and I think avoid peeing for a long time to really flirt with that as an outcome.
That's what we heard about ecstasy all the time in the early 2000s, was that people didn't die from dehydration. They died from overhydration. And maybe that happened. I'm not trying to dismiss the potential that did happen, but I feel like that was probably a bit of a moral panic around kids doing ecstasy.
Right. Because again, it's water intoxication is pretty unusual.
Yeah, you gotta really go for it.
Yeah. And you gotta go past the point of pretty intense discomfort, I would think, too.
Yeah. And then I would say the other thing about this alcohol theory is, in terms of what's happening in culture and society, it is we're getting to the temperance movement. So it does feel like a potent fucking story.
Yes. Oh, Chelsey, this is so fun.
Yeah.
I feel like we're putting together a jigsaw puzzle together.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like it would be a really potent story that gave you a really strong metaphor, something to reference about the dangers of alcohol. I mean, it really couldn't be more perfect for a movement's need for that kind of a sensational story. Whether they used it or not, I don't know.
And some temperance activists do bring up spontaneous human combustion in exactly the tone you're saying of if you drink too much, you could just burst into flames.
Yep. Okay.
And to be clear, there's also so the basic logical fallacy here, I think, is that the implication is that if you're a habitual drinker, the more you drink, the more your body gets suffused with alcohol, as if you're a fruitcake, right? Which if you don't make fruitcake, it's very good. You make a cake and then you soak it in, I think my mom uses whiskey, but you soak it in alcohol and then you wrap it up and you put it in a cupboard for a month. And so you have something that's completely soaked through with alcohol, and it's also got glacé cherries in it, and it's very good.
Does the alcohol kind of dissipate, or do you actually get drunk when you're eating a fruitcake?
Oh no, it's in there. I mean, you don't get drunk, but it's got a kick to it. None of it is cooked off or anything. It's in there.
Well, maybe I would have tried a fruitcake had I known.
I know. People don't know. That's why I bring it up. Yeah. It's a very, very delicious, boozy dessert. But so the issue is that people are not fruitcake, right? And if I drink a lot of something, my tissues aren't going to be soaked in it. My tissues aren't soaked in Celsius because I'm drinking Celsius today. It'd be kind of cool. Or if you Chelsey drank I don't know, a 32 ounce cup of your favorite soda, your tissues wouldn't be pickled in that by the end of the day. Or even if you did that every day for years, that wouldn't happen. You damage your liver and you give yourself plenty of other internal problems, but you don't actually soak your tissues in the alcohol that you're drinking.
Right.
And so you're not rendering yourself any more flammable than anybody else. What you are doing, and you can probably guess this, is making yourself potentially more likely to set yourself on fire.
Yeah, and maybe not wake up.
Yes.
If you're really toasted and you're, passed out. Because sometimes, man, people are hard to wake up when they're drunk. I'll tell you what.
They really are. Even when they're sober sometimes, including me.
That's true.
Well, maybe this is a good time for you to talk about the kind of archetypal case that you wrote about back in the day.
Yeah. Let me see if I can fucking bring it up.
Yeah, bring it up.
My teacher really liked it.
I bet it was great.
All right. Well, you want to hear my opening?
Yes, I do.
I found it. I can't believe I found this. This has to be from like 2007. Yeah. Upon touching the doorknob to the apartment of Mary Hardy Reeser, the landlady, Mrs. Pansy Carpenter, recoiled her hand. The doorknob was warm enough to cause a stir of concern, a concern great enough to call for the police when there was no answer to her pounding. The police entered the apartment to find no signs of fire, no smoke, no discoloration, and certainly no apparent damage. There was only this, a simple pile of sky-gray ash resting calmly atop an intact foot, still inside its slipper. So that's my first opening for that story.
That's a very good opening.
Thank you.
And so this is a real case that you're talking about here.
Yeah, it is. We had to go and go to the microfiche for this. Ooh. I remember for this assignment. And before newspapers.com, we had to go to the actual microfiche. And that was a lot of fun. And that was the case I found. So I do think it was one of the more famous ones.
I think this was the one, that happened at the right moment to kind of lodge in a lot of Americans' minds and is kind of maybe the first of the, unsolved mysteries years.
Mm-hmm.
Having talked about what we have so far, I mean, what do you think happened?
Well, I guess I would think, God, there are just so many parts of it that I can't fit into what I think, because it's like what I always come back to is like, how are the bones gone?
Yeah.
That is the really confusing part. But I guess my guess would be maybe someone's drinking, they're wearing flammable clothes, maybe because there is so much fire in Victorian homes before we have electricity. There are many, many flammable things that can touch a person.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess I would just think a combination of those things could create a scene that maybe could be interpreted as spontaneous human combustion. But again, I just come back to how it could incinerate a person so completely without burning down the rest of the house, or at least some of the house.
Yeah.
More after this. And now back to the show.
Well, let me bring famous skeptic Joe Nickell into the equation.
Okay,
we talked about him recently.
Love Joe.
And this is from a Skeptical Inquirer article.
I love the Skeptical Inquirer.
I do too.
I just want to shout them out. I have a subscription, so get a subscription to the Skeptical Inquirer.
Yeah,
so many amazing
do.
Folklorists cover urban legends and things like that over there. So please continue.
Yeah. And Joe Nickell wrote many columns from there. He has since passed on. He was a very important voice of reason in a lot of the creepy stuff that I watched on TV growing up.
Totally.
So I'm very grateful for that. And so he writes, in case after case, we found plausible causes for the ignition, thus removing the word spontaneous from the equation. For example, Mary Reeser was seen just before her death wearing flammable night clothes, sitting in a large stuffed chair, smoking a cigarette after having taken sleeping pills.
Okay.
She was a proverbial accident waiting to happen. And I will also point out that it's possible that people die of shock before dying a painful death, being, burned.
Right.
And also that this happens at such high heat and so quickly that possibly there's not too much suffering, which I certainly hope for.
Yeah, me too.
So on the one hand, it feels very mysterious and uncanny. And yet when you look at a lot of these cases, as you mentioned, there is somebody who is in a room where they potentially are wearing very flammable clothing. There are other things that might serve well as kindling or just nice flammable stuff all around them. There are cases of people who have matches in their pockets. This article also points out that safety matches weren't invented until the late 19th century.
What is a safety match?
One that doesn't light itself on fire spontaneously, apparently.
Okay, got it.
Do you want to look this up?
Kinda. What's a safety match? Okay, I'm doing it. A safety match ignites only when the head is struck against a special striking surface.
Okay. So I guess it's one that needs the sort of strip on the back to ignite rather than just like, I guess, is that why in old movies people are always lighting matches on their shoes?
Oh, it's a strike anywhere match. Yeah, so it's that kind of a match where you don't need the special kind of gridded surface. You can do it. Like I remember having matches back in the day that I could light on my teeth. It was cool.
That is cool.
I should have spontaneously human combusted, obviously. I was asking for it, man.
Well, but here's the thing though, right? Because in a lot of these cases, we have these mitigating circumstances. You know, there's a fireplace in the room. A spark could have as you know, fires crackle and pop, so a spark can leap out and land on something. So you can imagine the circumstances kind of being just right. But also there still remains the issue that the human body is not designed to go up in flames. So why is that happening?
Right.
Yeah.
I guess I'm interested in this chair situation, right? Where it's like a stuffed chair. I feel like that burning could create a hot enough temperature, not necessarily to get rid of bones, but that it would kind of be confined to the chair area and the flame would kind of go upward around the person rather than outward. I could see that making sense. And it also leads me to wonder, in terms of the bones, if that was something that was exaggerated in police reports and newspapers. I don't know how much firsthand evidence, photographs, things like that were available since photography was kind of in a pretty early phase at that moment in time. I just wonder, how much we can trust this idea.
That's a good impulse. What's interesting, though, is that the disintegrated bones thing does appear to be pretty true and pretty consistent across these cases. It does not seem that exaggeration. I mean, I feel like exaggeration always comes in to some degree, but it doesn't seem to be playing a significant role.
Okay.
Where there are a lot of stories that you and I have both looked at where something gets misheard and a normal detail gets repeated as if it's a sinister detail. And suddenly that's allowed to give people the theory that maybe there's a cryptid involved. But that doesn't seem to be what we're dealing with here. The thing of this fire being hot enough to disintegrate bones appears to actually be completely true.
God, that's so crazy. That's so crazy. Okay. All right.
Okay. Well, let's watch, now that we're nice and confused, a clip from Unsolved Mysteries.
Okay. Oh my God. All right. This scene that we were starting with, I can already tell. Okay.
Such mysterious episodes have been reported for well over 500 years. Students of the paranormal call it spontaneous human combustion, or SHC.
Man is standing next to a giant
A perfectly
flame.
normal person bursts into flame without warning and without apparent cause.
He's like, this isn't dangerous, is it?
Mainstream scientists dismiss such accounts. Still, the reports have persisted since the 15th century and show no signs of letting up now at the dawn of the 21st. If there is indeed such a thing as SHC, Kay Fletcher is one of the few who lived to tell about it. Most of the others weren't so lucky.
God, what a great show.
March 26, 1986. Kendall Mott was worried.
1986
His father, George,
case.
a retired fireman, had serious lung problems.
So this is still really
An
happening.
air pump and face mask
A
helped keep him
retired
breathing.
fireman. He should
But
have
on
been
that
safe.
day, George hadn't answered repeated phone calls. A quick look around convinced Kendall that something was wrong.
The windows were all brown, and I noticed that the door handle was warm when I grabbed it.
Dad?
It was real dark inside the house, and it smelled like it'd been burnt.
Dad? Dad?
Kendall was confronted by a ghastly sight. Fire had reduced his father to a scattering of ashes, a few splinters of bone, and a fragment of skull.
If you trust Unsolved Mysteries, which I do, there's a hole burned in the bed where his body
It's
is
scary to
sitting.
find somebody like that, to walk in and find somebody that you love, all burnt like that, with no explanation as to why or what happened.
The case of George Mott in the spring of 1986 has all the hallmarks of classic spontaneous human combustion.
This guy.
There's incredible
Larry E. Arnold,
localized
author, Ablaze.
damage done to the body. George Mott was incinerated to an extent that we have been told by forensic experts could only be replicated inside a crematorium operating at 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit or more for 12 long hours.
Wow.
The searing heat had melted a television in the room, yet curiously, it had left much of the bedding unscathed. In addition, scarcely 2 feet away, a box of wooden matches had failed to ignite, and air was still pumping through George's face mask.
Wow.
Skeptics, however, insist that behind the bizarre scene lies a rational explanation.
Now, do I know exactly what happened? I don't,
Joe
but let me
Nickel.
reconstruct a little bit. We're told that Mr. Mott was a former drinker and a former smoker, but that he had reformed. He was supposed to be depressed. Just suppose that he said, "What the heck, I think I'll have a cigarette." This would explain him taking off the oxygen mask while the unit would still be left running, and it would explain why the matches were there.
Yeah.
Now, if that's the case, then this is just another case of smoking in bed, and is not mysterious, and is a rather mundane case.
But not even skeptics use the word mundane to describe what Don Gosnell found in December of 1966. A gas company meterman in Countersport, Pennsylvania, Gosnell called on Irving Bentley, a 92-year-old retired physician. That day, Dr. Bentley was apparently away from home. Gosnell let himself into the basement.
When I got to the bottom of the steps, there was a pile of ashes on the floor. And there was an odor, something I'd never encountered before. It was kind of a sickening sweet odor. And then I looked up, and here there was a hole burnt through the floor right above me.
It's like Alien.
And I stood there and I looked at that hole, and there was little red embers all around the hole yet. And all I could think was, they got Dr. Bentley out of here, but why didn't somebody call the fire company and get this taken care of? So I went running upstairs and went in to the bathroom, and that's when I found the remains of Dr. Bentley, or what was left. All there was part of one leg, and was so discolored, I couldn't tell it was a human being or a mannequin until I got right down close and looked at it. And when I got the picture, I left right then.
Jeez.
What is so amazing and so profoundly perplexing to mainstream science about the scene that Dr. Bentley left behind is the incredibly intense fire that consumed his body quite literally to powder, leaving behind only his head, a knee bone, and a lower left leg as mute testimony that this had once been a human being. The rest of his body was ash in the basement below. We believe that Dr. Bentley answered a call of nature, to be polite, or standing in front of the toilet, suddenly, spontaneously, he became a human fireball. The nature of the fire, and we kind of use fire in quotes here, failed to produce enough thermal energy to melt the aluminum walker, failed to produce enough heat to blister paint on the bathtub inches away, and yet was quite capable of directing its energy downward through the oak beams, through the flooring, and into the subfloor beneath, into the basement.
The case of someone like Dr. Bentley is very understandable in the sense of him being infirm. He had a history of setting his clothes on fire from his pipe. His clothing was pockmarked with burns from his pipe.
Dr. Bentley also had a habit of keeping matches in his bathrobe pockets. Joe Nickel believes that burning ashes from Bentley's pipe dropped near them and they ignited, and there was plenty of fuel to feed the flames.
In many of the cases, the person's own body fat can contribute to the fire. If we imagine Dr. Bentley with his body on fire, he falls to the floor. There is linoleum on that floor, and linoleum, once it catches fire, is a very powerful flammable material. The flooring burned, the subflooring burned, and beams, there's beams underneath. There's a tremendous amount of wood underneath his body to act as a funeral pyre. Mysterious? Not really, not scientifically mysterious. Unusual, yes.
The debunkers of spontaneous human combustion could conduct a very simple experiment. Take a cadaver, put it on a tar-based linoleum flooring, put an aluminum walker over top of it, and drop a cigarette on it. If it burns to powder, we're going to be real impressed, and that person deserves a Nobel Prize in physics. But I'll wager money that experiment's going to fail.
I wish I could hear Joe's response to that.
Larry Arnold theorizes that some cases of spontaneous human combustion may be an explosive aberration of the electrical current flows naturally present in the body.
We have the potential of hundreds of thousands of volts of electricity coursing through the body instantaneously. If the amperage is sufficiently high, then the body would literally become its own electrocution mechanism. It would fry itself out from the inside electrically.
This is crack pottery of a very high order. There is not a single reasonable theory for spontaneous human combustion. There is no convincing scientific evidence of it, and so the mystery mongers ought to shut up and get a life.
Tell him, Joe.
Shut up and get a life, says Joe Nickell.
Larry Arnold is unfazed by such criticism. He claims to have researched over 400 cases of spontaneous human combustion,
What are his
some dating
credentials?
back to the 1400s, and many documented by photographs.
The naysayers, the PhDs who are phenomena-hating debunkers, choose not to face the facts.
I don't know.
This is a mystery that's crying out for study, that's crying out for recognition. This is a mystery that is, to this day, unsolved.
As ever, yeah. Well, what do you make of the Nickell debunking? And I'll say that the more credulous guy in that clip is Larry Arnold, who's the author of a book called Ablaze, which I feel I should tell you also has an exclamation point in the title. So it's not ablaze, it's ablaze.
Great. The professionalism of the exclamation mark is...
It's like Oklahoma. Oh, what a wonderful morning. Oh, what a beautiful day. And also one of the top blurbs is by Maury Povich. So, safe to say it has not been peer reviewed.
Really? Maury just dying to friggin' blurb that book. Okay. That's so weird.
Do you want to hear Larry Arnold's flap biography?
Yeah.
Okay. This guy really is like the natural enemy of Joe Nickell. Larry E. Arnold, who, no shade, looks in his author photo like he's in a Doobie Brothers tribute band, redirected a background in mechanical and electrical engineering to explore the unconventional, capital U. As director of Parascience International, he has studied and researched phenomena which challenge orthodoxy, ... None more so than the subject of this, his third book. He writes for many magazines and 40 journals. Charles Fort is a topic for another show, I think, with us.
Yes.
And lectures internationally at colleges and universities. Television appearances include The Other Side, People Are Talking, The Extraordinary, Live, AM Chicago, The Fifth Estate, Sightings, The Maury Povich Show, Extremely Weird, and That's Incredible! No degrees mentioned.
Another exclamation mark.
Yeah.
I mean, what you're saying, he is the anti-Joe Nickell. He's like the perfect diametric opposite, which is fun. I like to hear from both sides. Why not?
Yeah. Well, and I'm giving this guy a hard time, but I also think that Joe Nickell is a little bit too confident in this clip where he's like, everyone should just shut up and get a life. And it's like, but Joe, why are these people so flammable though? Like, I get that it's a bit much to say that they couldn't possibly have been set on fire by an external source when a lot of them were like smokers and stuff. And it's a bit silly, or at least feels silly to suggest, as the show does, that like the electromagnetic impulses in our brains are potentially igniting our bodies. But like, there still remains a mystery of why some people burn so much more readily than others,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I do wish I could have heard Joe's response to a lot of the things brought up by Anti-Joe. Anti-Joe is the new Anti-M, by the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, again, it's like, I don't know. I am so bad at science, so it's really hard for me to extrapolate on any of this because I don't know how, I mean, again, I kind of go back to like with the bed, kind of again with the chair from Mary Reeser, there's like an element of the stuffing inside of it. I mean, we know beds are flammable. We know that that's a thing. Perhaps it was like an especially flammable, like old bed because he's
that's a good point.
An older person.
Because as you know, we used to soak household objects in, flammable compounds just for fun.
So we don't know that detail. The one in the bathroom is weirder, right? Because it's like, I don't really know. There wasn't, as far as we know, another source that could have caught on fire that could have made the fire hot enough.
But you'll remember, though, that in that case, one of the things that's so compelling about that is that it ends up looking like in Alien, when the alien has acidic blood and it burns through several levels of the spaceship's floor. In this case, the linoleum underneath the victim catches fire.
Right.
And then the wood, the kind of like layers of flooring underneath that catch. And so, okay, so I'm going to bring in something that I find really interesting and to me explains a fair amount. Again, not everything.
Okay.
But when you think about it, there's, in a lot of these cases that we've talked about, clearly an intense amount of heat for the human body to be incinerated the way that it is. And it appears to be directed upwards and downwards, primarily downwards.
Sure.
But not to the sides.
Yes.
And what is there a lot of in the human body, aside from water?
Fat?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so there emerges this thing that I think we start kind of hearing more about spontaneous human combustion in the 80s because of just kind of publishing trends and the forms of media emerging. We need material for the unsolved mysteries type shows. There we go. So some scientists begin theorizing the idea of, I think it's just called the wick theory, where basically if a person is on fire, and this is pretty gory, but so is everything else for the past bit of time, I guess, your fat will burn, it will liquefy, it will suffuse the clothing that you're wearing.
Whoa.
And then your body and your clothing will effectively act like a candle.
Wow.
And you can burn for a sustained period of time. And then as you burn, your fat will soak into like the chair or the mattress or the furniture or the flooring underneath you.
Okay.
And continue to burn and reach higher temperatures as well.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. What do you think about that?
I mean, it's incredibly gruesome, but it makes a lot of sense to me, a very lay person of the sciences. But, what I'm hearing is that the fat that kind of liquefies, right? It's like we can almost follow where the fire would stay within the boundary of that.
Right. And with this kind of human candle effect, right? That if I, and again, you and I are both coming at this from an MFA and by definition, the fine arts perspective, not the fine sciences. But if I light a candle, a spark can leap from it and start something else on fire, or just the heat from it can warp things that are around it, but not directly below or above it.
Right.
And as in one of the Unsolved Mysteries cases, we saw there was heat damage to a TV, but the bedclothes that were closer by didn't catch fire.
Yes.
Because some things get warped by heat at a distance.
Right.
But that there was this sort of, if we're to believe the wick theory, that effectively the human body becomes a candle.
God.
Or it can become a candle under certain circumstances.
Wow.
And I feel like this is the kind of thing where it is mysterious because we don't really understand it fully as a phenomenon. And I would like people to study it more. I realize we have much higher priorities, but I don't know. Why the heck not?
Yeah.
And yet, I don't know, the thing that we want to maybe inject the paranormal into, which some people have, some have theorized that this is the doing of poltergeists or whatever, but that it's perfectly scary enough all on its own without adding any more mystery to it. I feel like we haven't fully explained it. We know that it happens. It seems like it's not spontaneous. I agree with the Joe Nickel analysis that usually you can credibly imagine a source of fire. And I wonder if we're seeing less of this now because people have fewer open flames in the home.
Yeah.
But that the scary thing about it is that it's such a knowable, seeable phenomenon, even though it is rare.
Yeah. And yet nobody sees it happen.
Right. So there's like the element of mystery preserved there, where also it's like if there's not a witness, you can be more theoretical in terms of what you're imagining.
You can definitely fill in some blanks there. Yeah. And I mean, I just am like wondering, not that the Victorian era was so like devil and so Satan, right? But it is, I just can see it like being such a prime candidate for some sort of like satanic panic stuff, because what else would the devil do but burn you from within? Yeah.
Yes. Well, the devil rum.
Yeah.
Or the devil gin, I guess. What is the Hogarth illustration, Gin Alley and Beer Street, about how we should all keep drinking beer because if you drink gin, then you'll become an unfit mother, which, it's a limit to how much gin you can have, for sure.
That's the devil's drink.
And that's really the 18th century. But I love how at the time they're like, honey, just drink beer. Just have all the beer you want.
Yeah.
As a mother.
Do you remember Troll 2, where they're talking about milk and they say, that's the devil's drink?
No, I haven't seen that in a long time.
Yeah. Maybe it's time for a revisit. Yeah.
I think so. Okay. Well, so let me just try and fill in a final piece of the puzzle. And this is, it's a theory, but I think it's an interesting theory.
Okay.
So this is Brian J. Ford of Cardiff University, who ends up now in a lot of these spontaneous human combustion pieces. And I got to see a clip of him on ITV. He built for these experiments little dolls.
Okay.
And made little model rooms for them in which to spontaneously combust. And
wow, that's cool.
I just find that very charming. I have a screenshot for you later.
Yeah, and it also makes me want them to do that at the Washington State Fair in the Hobby Hall. I want to see the mini spontaneous human combustion dollhouse.
God, I would love that. Yeah. Maybe we need to make that ourselves, honestly.
Yes.
Okay, let's get on it.
We have so much time.
So this is from an article published in The Microscope in 2012, where Brian J. Ford is like, I've done it. I've solved spontaneous human combustion, which is quite bold.
Very.
But so here's what he has to say about that. So Brian Ford comes back, as we have been coming back to in this conversation, to the problem, which I think it's very helpful that he isolates and states as kind of the prime issue here, which is that it's easy to imagine how a person might set themselves on fire and harder to imagine how they would go up in flames. And he writes, the human body is not inflammable. It is full of water and it will not burn. This key issue was examined in 1851 by J. von Liebig, who reviewed 50 reported cases. Liebig is known to modern scientists for his design of the chemical condenser. He was also the first person to isolate titanium. Liebig pointed out that anatomical specimens were typically preserved in 70% ethanol, yet cannot be set on fire. Drunkards did not have inflammable corpses.
Wow.
Liebig set fire to anatomical specimens soaked in alcohol and showed that the spirit burned off, leaving the tissues unharmed. So even if the theory that the more you drink, the more your tissues get soaked in alcohol was true, it still wouldn't do anything. And he writes later, the mystery of SHC, if you want to see him in the know, I call it SHC, is not what initiates the burning, but what converts a watery specimen of non-combustible fat and flesh into a furnace. That is the core of the mystery, and it was this I set out to address. And then this section is called the acetone answer. Ooh. One factor has been overlooked by everyone. When the metabolism of cells is forced to change, new biochemical pathways emerge. When reviewing the victims of SHC, I discerned a single factor that they might all have in common. Some, but not all, were alcoholics. Some, but not all, were overweight. Some, but not all, were old and enfeebled. Some, but not all, smoked cigarettes. But they all seem to have been unwell. In many conditions, including alcoholism, blood glycogen levels become depleted. Cells can no longer rely upon conventional energy resources, and fat molecules are used instead as an energy source. Triacylglycerol lipids cleave to provide fatty acid chains and a glycerol molecule. The fatty acids are used as an alternative source of energy through beta oxidation that gives rise to acetyl-CoA, which helps derive the Krebs cycle within the mitochondria. Did I understand that sentence? No, not really. If the body's cells suffer starvation, which can occur during chronic illness and even during a workout at the gym, acetyl-CoA in the liver is translated into acetoacetate, and this can decarboxylate into acetone. Okay, so I'm sure I mispronounced some stuff in there. And so basically what he's saying, to strip it down to my level of comprehension, is that essentially if your blood glycogen levels are low, as they were for many of these people potentially, then your body will undergo a series of reactions that will cause it to produce more acetone.
Okay. And acetone is what else but flammable, right?
Yes.
I mean, really flammable, because isn't acetone kind of like an alcohol form?
Yeah, so the way we generally know it and what he goes on to cite immediately is that we use it as nail polish remover, which we all know to be very careful with. And we all know, I think, what that smells like. And it smells as flammable as it is.
Yeah, truly.
And I think the thing that we don't understand, and this is partly why this is a promising theory, but it is still just a theory, is how much acetone can the human body produce, and can it transform the human body into a flammable object?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great hypothesis for sure. I mean, it makes more sense than pretty much anything else so far has to me, especially considering the link that he has made between everyone being unwell,
right,
and that being the commonality across all of the cases versus being like some people are alcoholics, etc., but not something that's common across all cases except for this. So it seems promising to me. And acetone's really flammable. It's very scary.
Yeah. And so he writes in this article, acetone is familiar as nail polish remover and may seem to be an unusual compound to find in metabolic cycles, but it is always present in the body in small amounts, and it can be used as an energy source by living cells. The cells of the brain, for example, cannot access long-chain fatty acids as an energy source, but they can use ketone bodies like acetone instead. It is an essential emergency energy supply for the cells of the body. Acetone has other key properties. It is miscible with both water and lipids, and is therefore well placed to permeate through the tissues. So we have something that the body naturally produces, and I think the idea here is that if you kind of are in a state, as some of these people may have been, for whatever reason of, just chronic ill health, not getting adequate nutrition, this isn't something that there are really accounts of happening to young and healthy people,
right? At
least in significant numbers. And so this idea that it's happening to people who are already a bit infirm, but in a way where it's not a Victorian morality tale, but about potentially the effects on the body of not receiving adequate care or not getting adequate nutrition.
Yeah.
Or being on the carnivore diet, as the case may be. Don't go on the carnivore diet. You'll burst into flames.
You heard it here first, people.
Okay. And now I'm going to send you a picture. Okay. And this is from one of Ford's tests. Because essentially, in order to test these theories, he makes little dummies out of pig skin and then covers them in acetone and then sets them up in cute little rooms.
Wow. And then kind of watches the pattern of the fire and okay. Wow. It looks...
I'm going to send you another one too.
His little room he made is so cute.
I know. I really like it.
I love it. He must have had a really nice time. Maybe this is something he always wanted to do, and he found a roundabout way to incorporate his love of dollhouse making.
Or maybe his partner is a keen miniaturist and they did this together.
I really like thinking of them as a gay couple that is working together on figuring out spontaneous human combustion.
Yeah. See, and that's something that I would watch.
Me too. Okay. Wow. These are incredible.
Yeah. Tell me what you see.
Okay.
Well, especially in that bottom photo in the second slide I sent you.
So the first photo is his little tiny dummy he made sitting on his little tiny wooden chair that he made with his little tiny bookcase that he made with a bunch of little tiny books.
With his little tiny fireplace with a tiny mantle with a tiny clock.
We will have these photos on social media, everyone. You're going to need to see them at American Hysteria Podcast on Instagram. These are so incredible. He even has like a miniature, beautiful rug beneath.
I know, these rooms are really nice. It's impressive to me that he's able to set them on fire. There's actually a very nice sideboard in the second photo.
I know. I wish I knew exactly how big it was.
It's at 1/12 scale.
Okay, so not tiny, but pretty small.
Yeah, so this figurine is probably 6 inches tall.
Right. Yes. Okay. That makes sense. That's so cool.
But it looks like that sideboard is made out of hardwood,
It's incredible.
Like the Felicity furniture in the American Girl dolls.
Oh, you know me. I was a boy, so I don't have the same.
Well, I still have my Felicity wardrobe and I have leg warmers in it. It's great.
Wow. I remember when they had leg warmers. That's stuck in my head for some reason.
Leg warmers were great. I don't know how women today are keeping our legs so warm when in the 80s everyone's shins were freezing.
Yeah.
Okay, well, speaking of legs.
In our photo, the first in the series of 2 is the doll that he made sitting in the chair on fire. And then the second photo is basically kind of this like melted mass of, you know, the doll and the chair.
Pig bits. But
you can see very clearly that the only part of the doll that has remained intact is the legs. And in fact, you can still see the little high heels, the little shiny high heels on the little tiny feet that he made. And that is all that remains, just like in the cases of the other spontaneous human combustions that we covered.
I mean, again, not a scientist, but that's pretty cool that they're able to reproduce that effect, right?
Interesting. Well, I really like this guy. I like what he's up to.
I like him too. Yeah.
I like the cut of his jib.
Thank you for your service, Brian J. Ford. And let me just read you the conclusion of this article. Okay. So Brian J. Ford writes, for the very first time, we have a plausible model for spontaneous human combustion, which offers a natural metabolic explanation for this well-documented phenomenon. The model experiments match the descriptions of cases involving people. What are the practical implications? First, and this is important, do not accuse youngsters of solvent abuse just because they have acetone on their breath. They are more likely to be unwell or on a fat-free diet. Second, if you are suffering ketosis, it might be wise to avoid wearing synthetic fibers with the likelihood of static sparks. Is there a reasonable chance of dying from SHC? That can't be right. The reported episodes have been extremely rare, so it is far too unusual to cause anyone serious concern. On the other hand, if you're susceptible to ketosis, now might be the perfect time to give up smoking.
Wow.
Ford out.
Wow. Mic drop. No, I mean, and what that, you know, it's like what it is to me as I've gathered this information from you, what it feels like is a perfect storm situation that has only happened dozens of times, maybe, or maybe hundreds.
As far as we can tell, yeah.
Yeah, as far as we can tell. And maybe there are cases where this has happened and the house has burned down, right? There was something nearby that caused like a larger fire to occur, so we wouldn't necessarily think to investigate it further. I also don't know how fire investigation happens, so I could be wrong. But I think that it makes sense that like you have someone who's unwell, who has, you know, acetone in their mitochondria. I know that's wrong, but whatever. And they are
in the bod.
In the bod. And then they are also a smoker, or they have matches in their pocket. They're on a flammable bed, a flammable chair. They're perhaps wearing clothing that is more flammable than other clothing would be. And you just have these certain factors that come together to create a very, very, very improbable scenario that wouldn't have been studied very much because it's so rare. Like it's very sensationalized. And I think that that type of sensationalization draws less skeptical people toward it until the skeptics are ready to address something that's become too steeped in the paranormal or like parascience or whatever you want to say. So I think that it really makes sense to me. I think that I can't say we solved it. We're always going to leave room for the fact that maybe within each of us is a ticking time bomb.
We need more follow-up on this. Yeah.
But, you know,
probably don't have to worry about it.
No.
But, you know, eat a carb or you'll catch fire.
Yeah. Just don't. Just
don't catch fire. That's your advice.
Just don't do it.
Spontaneous human combustion. Just say no.
Just say no. Just say no. Don't smoke in bed, people.
Yeah. Although
you can. I mean, it's great.
Smoking in bed is the greatest.
I know.
Yeah.
If you're going to smoke in bed, be really vigilant. How about this? Don't get drunk.
Yeah. Eat bread at the same time.
And smoke in bed and make sure. And you should be eating bread anyway. because you should have something in your tummies.
Because you should be sobering up. Yeah.
Yeah. So
if you must smoke in bed, get a baguette on the way home.
That's going to be a really good night and very French.
Yeah.
The other thing that I'm remembering from the beginning of this episode is about how it seemed like if that description you read me of all the girls bursting into flames was something that was happening, that people were catching on fire in less mysterious ways. It just seems like a lot of people were catching on fire in the 1800s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They really seem to have been, and partly because we were cloaking them in flammable fabrics that we then soaked in flammable chemicals.
Yeah.
And that's also part of why there were so many terrible theater fires in the past, is because a lot of the elements of theater at that time were like very, very flammable.
Oh, that makes sense.
And we were just like, whatever,
Yeah.
And so again, I think spontaneous human combustion is appealing because it doesn't point the finger at any structural problems. It's like this person sitting all alone in their own home, caught on fire all by themselves. Wow.
God, that's so true.
We're living in a society.
And like you said, it is something that you don't have to address difficult things to try to explain. It is this victim blame mentality of, we don't need to try to figure out what would have caused this person to catch on fire, whether it is, clothing that needed to be manufactured differently, maybe manufactured with more expensive materials that, capitalists didn't want to have to start buying, or, whether it was addressing the same types of things in your home, or even addressing whether alcoholism is a problem, which then they did go on to address. But you know what I mean, where it's kind of like, no, you just exploded. There's something within you, individual.
Sometimes people just explode, and it's like, well, at the very least, like, we shouldn't have so many people who are older and poor health just like alone long enough to burn like an eternal flame.
And that is a great point, the way that we cordon off our elderly and ill.
Yeah. And it becomes spontaneous human combustion because nobody could see it start happening and try and stop it from happening more.
Right. And it's also one of those things where it's like, is it also like people almost desire this mystery?
Oh, yeah.
Because it's so out there and so wild that it's almost like, I hate to say fun. I don't find it fun to believe myself, but I think that people do want to keep these mysteries going.
Oh, yeah. Well, can I do like a teeny little side you're wrong about quickly on our way out?
Yes.
One last thing from the impulse rack. Okay. So one of the kind of unsolved mysteries of the past 20, 30 years that's gotten a lot of attention is the case of this woman named Maura Murray. Do you know that story?
Yes. I started listening to the Maura Murray podcast a long time ago, but I didn't get super far in it, but I do remember it.
Yeah. And I mean, there's been a lot of media about her. People have speculated a lot, and and I encourage you to seek out this information if you're interested in. But, it's a case where a woman was clearly distressed. She left her college campus. She'd bought a significant amount of alcohol, and then I think crashed her car into a tree. There was kind of a curve in the road that she wasn't expecting. And it was like cold weather. This was in New England, kind of in not a super rural area, but it's just like New England is a place where there's like bitter cold and where it's easy to get lost, basically, I would say. And so I'm not looking at details in front of me, so if I make mistakes, I apologize. But the basic details are that she crashed her car. This was observed by a couple of people. I think either the police were on their way or she was afraid that they would be. And so she just, in a very short amount of time, just kind of disappeared. And nobody knows where she went. Mm-hmm. And no one has ever found her that we know of. And there's, plenty of people who theorize that, like, well, what if a serial killer happened by like right at that moment? It's like, yeah. I mean, that would be incredible luck for a serial killer.
Yeah.
But yes, it's possible. But what's also possible, and I didn't think of this myself, like, many things that I believe, I read this in a YouTube comment, that makes me seem more vulnerable to conspiracy theories than I would like to think I am. But what are you going to do? But, what another possible theory is that she was scared of getting caught. She was scared of the police coming, and she ran into the woods and was perhaps intoxicated or tripped on something or was sober and tripped on something, or just got disoriented and lost, like so many of us who have gone a little bit too far into the woods to pee or whatever have done, and just got lost and couldn't find her way out. And again, I'm not saying that that is what happened, or that, you know, that I know any more than anyone else does. But it's amazing to me how obvious of a theory that is, and how I never thought of it, and how so many other people have never thought of it, because we just don't want it to be that easy to fall off the face of the earth.
Yeah. And it just almost feels like the mundaneness of something like that almost makes it feel more tragic. And I don't know exactly why.
Yeah. But also, would I rather someone die of hypothermia than at the hands of another human being, particularly a sadistic one?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yes. But there's just something about almost like our need for there to be an outside external force that comes in that is something we can battle against and we can hunt down like a serial killer or something, versus just an easy tragedy that could happen to any of us at any time if we, you know, divert at all from kind of our normal lives.
Yeah, or just get in over our heads and make a bad decision when there isn't a good margin in our favor. You know, if it's cold, if it's getting dark, we're very vulnerable creatures.
Yeah.
So in conclusion, I find the acetone theory persuasive. It's also just a theory. Brian J. Ford is an independent researcher, as was the guy who wrote Ablaze. And so just make a miniature room, conduct an experiment, make a little model of someone, and then set them on fire and be safe and have fun. And this is the information that I was able to find, but I really think what we know is that sometimes people catch on fire really suddenly and burn at very high temperatures, and we can't really deny that. That is a thing that happens every so often, and we don't really entirely know why.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of great.
Yeah. It's one of those mysteries that will always, I mean, I don't know if it'll always exist.
I think we could figure this one out in like 5 or 10 years.
Yeah.
I really think that we could get this one in the bag.
I think you're right.
You know, this is a tragic death for everyone who it's happened to, but also it's not statistically something that happens all that much. So I understand what we might want to put our backs into other problems, but come on, we can lick this one. That would be good.
We can solve this one, folks.
Let's have a telethon.
It's also one that I do really want to be solved. Like when it comes to ghosts, I'm like, don't solve it really. Like, I'm okay.
Yeah.
I have so many fun ghost experiences.
Let the ghosts be mysterious. They like it. They don't want to be hunted down by a guy in an Ed Hardy shirt.
But, you know, we want to keep things like what happens after you die. I think we need to keep a little bit of magic and mystery and in certain unexplained things in our lives. I think that's pretty important for us to develop culture and to develop art and to develop human relationships. But when it comes to people bursting into flames, I don't need any mystery there. I'd love for that one to let's nip that.
That's like putting seatbelts in cars.
Yeah.
Let's just take care of it.
Let's just get her done, huh? I appreciate all of the scientists, skeptics, and even independent researchers who believe. I appreciate your work. You know?
Yeah. I appreciate everybody who has taken part in this conversation over the years.
Let's give a hearty RIP to Joe Nickel.
RIP to Joe Nickel. Thank you so much for being on all the scary shows I watched and helping me to be less scared. It really meant a lot to me.
Yeah, and for the work you've done that's informed my work over the years too.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Chelsey. This was so fun.
I learned so much.
I learned so much too.
We really put on our lab coats for this one.
Yeah, we did. I tried to pronounce words. It was wonderful.
Oh, it was great. Yeah, I hope we get this one licked soon. But I know that you have something kind of exciting that you'd like to mention to our dear listeners that I know they will find very exciting. So what do you have coming up?
I do have something kind of exciting. Oh boy. Well, some fires burn very hot, but the hottest fire of all burns in hell, where the devil lives, which leads me to my new miniseries from CBC Podcasts. It's called The Devil You Know. Chelsey, you are in it.
Oh, yes.
And it's a mini-series about the Satanic Panic, the kind of thing I've been threatening to do for such a long time. And I got to talk to some people who were just caught up inside of the panic, and some people who were central to some of the stories that, again, Chelsey, you and I have talked about so many times over the years. I got to talk to some people who were involved in the saga that was Michelle Remembers, and who saw all that go down in real life. And also people who existed kind of just in little footnotes to the story, and the kind of footnotes that I've been so curious about. When we start with the story of a woman who came to a small town in Kentucky to teach photography to local students, and who was chased out of town for fear that she was trying to abduct blue-eyed blonde children to sacrifice to the devil. And when you think about it, that's the kind of thing that could happen right now.
Absolutely.
These United States.
Yeah.
And so it's a story about a moral panic of the past. We're also trying to make sense of just what can we take from the story in order to learn how to survive in the present. And it's also, I got to talk to just like people who survived being targeted, I think, by the Satanic Panic, or being affected by it in ways that I think, by the logic of the Satanic Panic itself, should have made their hearts wizened and untrusting. And instead, I talked to some of the most amazing people that I have met, because I think that it's a story that shows us the dual capacities of human nature, for both some of the worst behavior imaginable and some of the greatest redemption and the most kind of strength and hope. And I just loved getting to do it. And I loved getting to have you be a part of it and to help light the way, especially near the end.
No, I cannot wait. I haven't got to hear it yet, so I'm going to be listening along with everybody, and I'm so excited. And yeah, that description, I'm so glad to hear that everyone's doing okay. Not everyone, but some of the people.
Yeah, part of what the story is about on a bigger scale is, I think, just the resilience that people find in community, and especially the survival of queer communities in the face of this. And I'm so happy to be able to do it and to be sharing it. I've been working on it for a long time. You've been my friend as I've been in the midst of it for a long time. And I cannot stress enough that it is one of the primary goals of this to not be a downer. Because I don't have to tell you it's sad.
Yeah.
It is so overtly sad what happened to so many people. And then the question becomes, what are we going to learn from this? And how is one of the best things we can learn from this just how deeply real the human experience is at the core of this war, and how people figured out how to rebuild their lives once this panic passed through them.
Yeah. Oh, Sarah, I'm so excited. And so it's coming out, everyone. You're so lucky, because literally today, while you are listening to this, the first, is it all the episodes? Did they all come out at once?
No, we just have the first one coming out. So you can go hear about what happened in that small town in Kentucky and why people became convinced that a satanic cult had come to town, because there were strangers in the area, but they weren't Satanists. They were from Hollywood. And I won't say any more, but please check it out. Subscribe.
The Devil You Know.
The Devil You Know.
Great title, babe. Yeah.
Wherever you get your podcasts. And we'll continue to release it weekly. There's bonus episodes, but it'll be coming out between today and December 16th.
Yeah. I mean, look, you can go right now. You can turn this off right now. We can shut the fuck up right now. And you can go over and listen to the first episode. So,
and then you can come back to hear the rest of this.
Yeah, you can come back. We're going to be up to some stuff.
Got to hear the credits.
Yeah.
And if you feel too excited and you think you're going to combust, just eat some bread.
Eat some bread. Thank you so much, Sarah, for teaching us all about science and fire.
Thank you so much, Chelsey, for always talking about unsolved mysteries with me. It's the best.
I'll see you for the craft night, getting ready for the hobby hall.
Oh, I can't wait.
This was American Hysteria. Make sure you subscribe to Sarah's new podcast, The Devil You Know, from CBC, wherever you get your podcasts. Link in episode notes. And of course, listen to You're Wrong About Too. If you want to support our show, make sure we can keep making it and get ad-free episodes and bonus content, become a patron at patreon.com/American Hysteria or subscribe on Apple Plus. You'll get access to Hysteria Home Companion, where our producer Miranda and I tell you stories related to the topics that we cover and stories that we just know that you'll love. You can also hear a new subscribers only episode where I spend a whole hour in a stream of consciousness telling you about all of my ghost experiences. That's patreon.com/American Hysteria or subscribe on Apple Plus. You can also go to AmericanHysteria.com to pick up some of our merch. All the profits go to the Samir Project, a Palestinian-led mutual aid group on the ground in Gaza, providing food and supplies to displaced families. At AmericanHysteria.com, you can also leave us a message on the Urban Legends hotline about a tale that you remember from growing up or even one you've heard recently, and we might do an entire investigation about it. If you're feeling generous, you can leave us a 5-star review on whatever app you use. It really helps us out. American Hysteria's producer and editor is Miranda Zickler. Our associate producer is Riley Swedelius-Smith, and I'm your host, Chelsey Weber-Smith. Thanks, as always, for listening, and I hope you have a great week.